Hello. I'm assuming that we're now live. I'm gonna chart set. Hello everybody and welcome back to, well, not another video, but a live stream. And in this live stream I'm going to be giving some of my predictions for the 2022 Formula One season. Now you might well have noticed that I did this about a week ago, but I did that really stupid hand over mouth technique that meant you couldn't understand a word I was saying. So that didn't work, so I'm redoing it. And obviously this time I do have the advantage of having seen one race this year already, so a few of these might be made easier, a few of these questions might have already answered themselves, who knows. But I'm just going to do a quick little stream this morning. We won't be on here for too long, just to answer some of these questions, because obviously I did make that video and it turned out pretty badly, so sorry about that. So we're having a do-over, oh, is my stream on private? What's going on with that? My stream's on private apparently, which wouldn't be good because that means that you can't see me, and then I don't know why I'm talking to you because you can't see me. There we go, we should be public now. I'm just going to go and have a check because that would be pretty bad if I was just streaming to nobody. I don't know why it's like that if my YouTube page actually loads up. So let's have a quick look. This is a competent start to the stream, isn't it? Right, come on. So yeah, we're going to be doing some F1 2022 predictions that we didn't get right. The video that we didn't get right the first time, and we're having a do-over today because, you know, why not? Let's put right what we did wrong. So yeah, I've got a few questions that are written out that I'm going to try and base my predictions on. I mean, they're the same ones that we had last time. I don't know how many you were actually able to hear last time, so we'll go over it once again. So here we go, let's get on with it. I've rambled enough already. So the first question is, who will win the F1 2022 Drivers' Championship? Now, I'm going to go for, I mean, you probably already know I'm going to go for. I'm going to go for Charles Leclerc. I mean, I think he proved it in Bahrain. The Ferrari is by far the best car at the moment, by far the most reliable. Well, not by far, Red Bull are quick, but obviously the double blowout in Bahrain sort of puts questions over their reliability. But I think Ferrari definitely had the best overall package in Bahrain, and I think that will carry on pretty much throughout the season. Yeah, they look reliable, quick, and Leclerc and Sainz work quite well together as a team. So I think Leclerc is definitely the favourite for the Drivers' Championship. Obviously, it's going to be a completely different mentality because, you know, Leclerc, as ridiculously talented as he is, he's never had to fight for an F1 world title before. So it's going to be a big test of his mental strength. But I think, judging by his first two victories in Spa and Monza, when he had a rampant Lewis Hamilton chasing him down, the fact that he was able to hold him off both times despite Hamilton literally being right behind him, I think goes some way to showing us how much bottle he's got. So yeah, I think this year is going to be Charles Leclerc's year. I think Max Verstappen potentially, if Red Bull can sort their reliability out. I think Mercedes might get it right eventually, and if they can sort their problems quite quickly, then obviously, yeah, Lewis Hamilton is going to be in the mix. But I think Ferrari have come out the blocks flying. They look really competitive, really quick, really reliable. And yeah, I mean, in the race, Leclerc was so far ahead of Sainz. A lot's been said about Carlos Sainz. You know, he is pretty much the best alternative option you're going to get. You know, the guy's quick. He beat Lando Norris twice, beat Charles Leclerc on points last season. Even if you look at the actual races, Leclerc outpaced Sainz quite a lot of the time. But Carlos Sainz is definitely not one to underestimate. And I think if he strings some really good results together, could challenge for the championship himself. Who knows? I feel like Carlos Sainz is like the Nico Rosberg of this generation. Like, no one's really going to take him seriously as a title contender, but I wouldn't be surprised if he actually goes and sneaks one, because there's this really weird thing in the F1 community where like everybody underestimates Carlos Sainz, even though we all know that he's really good, and it's kind of a strange one. But yeah, I think if Carlos Sainz can get some form going, who knows, he could even challenge as well. But my prediction, Charles Leclerc, 2022 World Champion. Which leads us nicely onto our second question, and you probably already know the answer to this already. Who will win the Constructors' Championship? And it'll be no surprise to hear that I've gone for Ferrari to win it this year. Like I say, they've got the best package, the most consistent package, really quick over one lap, really quick on long runs. They look the real deal this season. They've worked tirelessly on these 2022 regulations, and it has worked an absolute treat for them. They are by far the best team in terms of, overall, like I say, the overall package. Red Bull are up there in terms of pace, but obviously still question marks over their reliability. Obviously with the engines, this is the first year that Red Bull are making their powertrains independently rather than working alongside Honda. I know Honda have some sort of influence still, but it's very much Red Bull driven. So I think it all depends on like Red Bull reliability. Verstappen will run them close because obviously he's got the pace and the ability to do that. And I think, again, like even in the Drivers' Championship, I think Verstappen will run Leclerc very close. But yeah, I just think that Ferrari just seem to have the better overall package this year. And again, like I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, Mercedes, they're going to take a bit of time, but if they get there, I think they'll be third this year. I think Mercedes will get it right eventually. It's going to take a few races, but obviously in Bahrain they were like 20-30 seconds off the pace. They've got a mountain to climb if they want to get back into winning races and challenging for the title. So yeah, it's going to be a bit of a long road for Mercedes, but if they get there, then yeah, obviously they'll be very strong, but I can't see that happening this year. So I'm going to go for Ferrari to win the Constructors' Championship. Okay, next question is, who will be the most improved driver this year? Now, at the start of the season, I went for Yuki Tsunoda, and that is purely because of the amount of work that he's done himself to improve himself. Really, he said it himself, that he was quite lazy during his first season. He didn't put the work in, he didn't do the training. He said, like you said, he just sat around playing on his PS5, which is, pretty cool life. But obviously when you're an F1 driver, you need to make sure that you put in the work in day out to get yourself fit for these races. And Tsunoda said that he did find it very difficult to adapt and that he needed to work harder. And it looks like in the second half of the first season and at the start of this season, he's done a lot of work to really sort of improve himself and improve his mentality, get fitter, get stronger. And I think we will see a very different Yuki Tsunoda this year. I think we'll see a much more consistent Yuki Tsunoda, and I think he'll be a lot closer to Pierre Gasly this season. Obviously, Gasly himself has set a very impressive benchmark. I still think he'll be the lead driver, but I think Yuki Tsunoda will be a lot closer and will score points on a much more consistent basis. So yeah, Yuki Tsunoda is going to be my most improved driver of this year. Now the next question, this answer's kind of changed quite a lot over the last few days. I put, who will be the surprise package? Now when I made my terribly audible video, I went for Williams, but I think we can definitely see that this is not going to be the case now, despite the investment that they've had. And obviously the two surprise packages already are Haas and Alfa Romeo. I think that's primarily to do with the Ferrari powered cars having a significant advantage in engine performance. But considering that these two were complete backmarkers last year, Haas didn't score a single point. They completely wrote off 2021 to get it right for this year. It's paid off big time, and Alfa Romeo over the last 3 or 4 years have never been consistent point scorers anyway. The amount of improvement that they've done to get themselves to the front of the grid, to make themselves competitive for this year, is very, very impressive. Valtteri Bottas, we knew he was going to be a very solid pick for Alfa Romeo, very heavily experienced. He's won 10 Grand Prix. He's finally going to a place where he feels comfortable. He'll be the lead driver, and very, very impressive Alfa Romeo debut for Bottas. P6 on the grid, finished in the points, and Guan Yu Zhou as well. I mean, I'm going to be honest, I didn't expect an awful lot from Guan Yu Zhou. I thought he'd struggle. I really did. I've watched him in F2, and I know he won the title last year, but I still wasn't overly convinced about the quality of the opposition that he was up against, and the fact that he'd been in F2 for 3 years. Was he quite at that level? But my God, did he prove me wrong. I think it was about 14 overtakes? It might have been even more than that. But he was sensational in Bahrain. He was passing people left, right and centre. He didn't care. It was his F1 race. First F1 race. He didn't care that he was going up against experienced drivers. He looked like a seasoned professional, and he got rewarded with a point on his debut. So yeah, Guan Yu Zhou proved me wrong big time with a fantastic display. So yeah, Alfa Romeo in a really good place right now, and Haas, Kevin Magnussen finishing 5th. I mean, what a last minute signing that is. Drafting him back in after a year away. I mean, a lot of us know how good Kevin Magnussen is. I maintain, and I've maintained it for a while, I think Kevin Magnussen is the most underrated driver of the last 10 years. I honestly think people talk about the Nico Hülkenbergs, Sergio Perez, Carlos Sainz, all of that. And yeah, they are all underrated to an extent, but I think Magnussen more so than anyone, because he's just, despite the machinery, probably with the exception of his 2020 season with Haas, he has always made the most of every car that he's been given. He scored a podium on his debut in a McLaren, ended up being P2. Was probably unlucky to get shafted because obviously Fernando Alonso came calling and they weren't going to kick Jenson Button out. So he ended up missing out for a year. Absolutely dominated Jolyon Palmer at Renault, which, okay, given that's not exactly hard to do, but came back in at Renault after a year away, was comfortably ahead of his teammate. Then he went to Haas, immediately inserted himself into that team really well, practically carried them to P5 in 2018 in the Constructors' Championship, because Grosjean was nowhere for the first half of the season. It was Magnussen getting all the points, racking up all those points, getting them ahead of Renault, even if they didn't quite stay there. And coming back in again after a year away, finishing P5. Very, very impressive. What a signing for Haas. He is going to do wonders for them this season. And I'm really pleased for them. They've had a very difficult year, obviously, with the Mazepin family and everything that's going on with Russia at the moment, and they've had a very difficult time of it, and it's nice to see them get a relative win. So yeah, Magnussen finishing P5, very impressive. Anyway, I've kind of diverged from my original point, which was who are the surprise packages, but those questions have already been answered. It's Haas, it's Alfa, and for their sake, let's hope it continues. Okay, now the next question, I don't think this will take too long to answer. Who is the Rookie of the Year going to be? Now, I'm pretty sure, I've got it narrowed down to one guy. I'm pretty sure it's going to be Guan Yu Zhou. Not entirely sure why, I've just got that feeling that it might be Guan Yu Zhou. Let's wait and see. There we go. Okay, biggest letdown. Now, this might be my most controversial answer yet, and I'm not even entirely sure. I don't know. Anyway, let's go for it. My biggest letdown, and if it feels harsh to say letdown, but I'm going to say it. It's George Russell. I've gone for George Russell. Now, I know it's a very harsh metric to judge him. Going up against Lewis Hamilton, who is the most successful Formula One driver of all time. It's a completely different beast to what George Russell is used to. He's gone up, let's evaluate his teammates so far. He's gone up against, oh, there's a plane flying overhead, thanks for that plane. But let's evaluate George Russell's teammates so far. He's had Robert Kubica, who is only able to use one hand in the cockpit. And he's had Nicholas Latifi, who apart from when Nikita Mazepin was here, has been the worst driver on the grid throughout his tenure in F1. I know that sounds harsh, but let's be fair, it's true. So, George Russell hasn't exactly had two competitive teammates to kind of measure himself against. He's been very impressive. Don't get me wrong, George Russell has pulled out some very impressive performances, put his Williams in places that it should not have been. But I feel like this year is going to be a real seismic shift for him, and I think he's going to struggle initially going up against Lewis Hamilton, going up against a guy who's so proven, who's done it time and time again, and he's gone from outright number one to immediate number two. And it's a big kind of mentality shift for him. And I mean, he's shown that he can be a team player, obviously, with what he said in Hungary last year when Latifi was running in the podium places, and he said, look, if you need to compromise my race, then do it. Which shows, I think that was to sort of show Mercedes that, hey, look, I can play the team game as well. And I think he will have to do that initially. And obviously with that Mercedes not being as competitive as it has been for so long, I think obviously he's going to have to kind of reset his expectations this year. He's probably going into this season thinking, right, Lewis is probably going to get the better of me, but I might nick a win or two occasionally, and if I can get 3 or 4 wins this season, that'd be cool. That's probably the mentality he had going in, assuming that Mercedes were going to be the fastest. I'm not saying just sort of basing it on previous years, if Mercedes had the quicker car. I'm kind of got caught up in my own head. I don't know if that made sense. Right, this is the problem with doing a live stream. If I lose my head, and I lose it a lot, I have to try and get myself back in focus. Especially if I feel like I'm sort of starting to talk shit, and I have to kind of veer myself away from the shit and start talking normally. But yeah, George Russell going into this year probably thinking, right, Mercedes might be the fastest car again. And if they are, I'll probably get 3, 4, 5 wins, maybe more. But obviously with this year, with with Ferrari and Red Bull being 1 and 2, you're going to have to kind of reset that a little bit. And then that's where the other questions start to creep in. It's like, is that first win going to come this year? If it doesn't come, when is it going to come? And will Lewis allow me to, or not allow me to, but obviously if Lewis is fighting for things, am I going to be allowed to have those opportunities, or am I going to have to give them up? But yeah, it's one of those things. But yeah, I think George Russell initially, I think he will struggle a bit at first, but I think as the seasons go on, he will improve. He will get closer to Hamilton, and eventually, I think when Hamilton hangs it up, he will take the reins and lead that team going forward. But yeah, initially, I think George Russell will struggle this season. So I put him as biggest letdown. Again, seems quite harsh. Although that's probably, none of that's even true anyway, because McLaren have been so bad. So I've put George Russell, but then McLaren were expected to compete with the front three, and they're the worst team of all. So really, for the last 5 minutes, I've been talking an absolute load of shite and been basing it off of drivers, when if you really think about the biggest letdown, this is another problem with doing a live stream, because you talk complete shit for 5 minutes and then realise you're wrong. I suppose the biggest letdown in terms of teams is definitely McLaren, because they would have expected to be near the front, and they're quite possibly, potentially, the worst team on the grid at the moment. Daniel Ricciardo was dead last for a lot of that race. Lando Norris was at the back, tried every single tyre just to try and get some pace, but he didn't have any at all. But yeah, I suppose in drivers' terms, I'm going to go for George Russell. In teams' terms, I'm going to go for McLaren, because they look awful, don't they? They've really, really not got it right. I think a lot of that is to do with the Mercedes power unit. Obviously, there was a point during the Grand Prix where Mercedes power units occupied every single position from 15th to 20th, which is absolutely unheard of. since 2014. You know, Mercedes have been by far and away had the best power unit, and that hasn't happened this year. I think Ferrari definitely have a quicker, more reliable engine. Red Bull have a quicker engine, but still question marks over the other side. But yeah, McLaren in a really bad place at the moment. So I'll say, to sort of edit my question a little bit, biggest letdown in terms of drivers, George Russell. In terms of teams, McLaren, because yeah, they look pretty dreadful. Okay, next question is, who will have the biggest gap to their teammate? Now I've got three. No, I haven't got three. I've got two. What is wrong with me this morning? Don't stream. Make videos instead. Do not stream. You just. Ugh. Okay. Who will have the biggest gap to their teammate? I've got two options for this. The first one is Max Verstappen. Obviously, genuinely, you know, traditionally has had quite a big gap to whoever's alongside him, with the exception of Daniel Ricciardo. I don't think that much will change this season. I think Perez will be closer. I think these cars do tend to suit his driving style a lot more. So I think Perez will be closer to Max than he was last season. But I still think Max will be that out-and-out number one that's consistently challenging the Ferraris and putting himself between them. So Verstappen will be the first one. The second one I've gone for is Alex Albon. And I suppose for Albon, it would probably be quite nice for him to be on the other side of this for a change. But yeah, in Bahrain qualifying, he was already lapping a second quicker than Latifi. It might just be circuit based. It might just be Latifi getting used to the new car. But yeah, Alex Albon looked so far ahead of Nicholas Latifi. And again, going back to my previous point, that kind of puts George Russell's achievements so much into perspective, because even Alex Albon, who, you know, after 2020 isn't one of the most highly rated drivers in Formula 1, even Alex Albon is putting a second on Latifi. And that's the first time he'd ever stepped in a Williams car in a competitive trim. So it kind of begs the question, how good is George Russell's qualifying really? Although impressive, how good is it when you think about Albon already being so much faster than Nicholas Latifi is? And to be honest, that's a trend that I see continuing. I can't see Latifi making up that gap. You know, he qualified dead last. Albon got into Q2, and even in Q2 was relatively competitive. So yeah, I think those two, I think Verstappen to Perez, Albon to Latifi, I think those two will definitely be the wider gaps, because obviously in terms of ability, you know, they're just on different levels. So yeah, it would be those two, either Max Verstappen or Alex Albon. Okay, so the next question, we've got two more to go and then we're all done. The next one is, how many different race winners will there be in 2022? Now initially I had 7. I'm just going to turn my plug on quickly because I'm afraid that my laptop's going to die. So just a second. Took a bit longer than a second. There we go. Initially I had 7 because I had Lando Norris in here, but obviously after McLaren being so dreadful, that's not going to happen. So I've gone for 6. Oh no, you got. I thought I muted it. I muted it, and then I unmuted it, and then as soon as I unmuted it, I burped. Pardon me. I thought I'd unmuted it. I did, and then it came. This has not been a smooth stream, chat. This has not been a smooth stream. Pardon me. My goodness. If you caught that, this was not a good idea at all. Oh my god. Right. Right, let's try this again. Mute. Unmute. I saw the green line go up as soon as I burped, so I was like, oh no. How has that happened? Excuse me, chat. Right. What was I even on? Oh yeah, how many different race winners? I've gone for 6 now because obviously the McLaren is dreadful and might not even get points, let alone win a race. So forget about that. I've gone for 6. So Charles Leclerc, obviously, who I think is championship material. Max Verstappen, who I think will finish second in the championship. Lewis Hamilton will win a race because, you know, he's never gone a season without winning a race, and that Mercedes will improve throughout the year, I'm sure of it, and he will get some wins. George Russell as well, although I've gone for him to be my biggest letdown, I still think he will get a win somewhere. He might only get one this season, maybe even more, who knows. Carlos Sainz, who I think will end up finishing third behind Leclerc and Verstappen in the championship. I think he'll get a couple of wins here and there, maybe even a few more, who knows. And Sergio Perez will shit out his way into something, because whenever there's an opportunity, Sergio Perez always seems to take it. And I think obviously he seems more competitive this season. He's closer to Verstappen. So I think if something does go down, I think Perez is in a much better position to be able to capitalise on these errors. So yeah, I think Perez will sneak one. I don't think there'll be any surprise winners this year. I might be right. It's so hard to call a surprise winner because obviously you don't know where they're going to come from. That's why they're a surprise winner. You know, who had Esteban Ocon winning the Hungarian Grand Prix? You know, you can't pluck these things. Who knows? So two Ferraris, 2 Red Bulls, 2 McLarens. No, not 2 McLarens. 2 Mercedes. Oh, this stream has been a mess. Let's try that again. 2 Ferraris, 2 Red Bulls, 2 Mercedes. There we go. My goodness me, what is going on? Okay, right, and the last question you'll be thankful to hear. Are Toto Wolff and Christian Horner going to have a scrap in the paddock this year? Hopefully. That would be quite a scene in Drive to Survive, wouldn't it? Yeah, well, I think obviously now Ferrari are the ones to beat. It's going to be less about Toto and Christian this year. And I don't think Mattia Binotto is the kind of guy that plays dirty. I don't think he's the kind of guy that allows himself to be wound up about things like that. I think he's much more level-headed, much more professional. And I don't think even either Horner or Wolff, if either of them try and antagonise him, I don't think they'll bite. But you never know, Red Bull, Mercedes might be fighting for second in the constructors, so you know, Toto and Christian might get all heated again. Who knows? But to be honest, they're all as bad as each other, really, aren't they? Yeah, you know, the thing is, the thing you got to remember is that team principals are there to fight their team's corner. Really, obviously, it's their job to run the team, make sure everything's in operation, but it's also their job to defend their team with their life. Well, it's a bit dramatic, but you know what I mean. So yeah, obviously Horner's going to fight Red Bull's corner on absolutely everything, every single little thing to try and gain their advantage. Toto Wolff's going to do the exact same thing. Every team principal does it. Every team principal that's ever existed has done it. It's nothing new. And you know, regardless of your personal opinion on them, it's just something that's always going to happen. But will they have a scrap in the paddock? Who knows? It'd be quite fun. It'd be something different. But yeah, I think that's pretty much every single question that I wanted to cover, and hopefully you guys were able to actually hear me this time. So yeah, just under half an hour. I said it wouldn't be a long stream, just to sort of make up for what I did the other day. But yeah, I hope that you enjoyed that. I hope that you enjoyed the Bahrain Grand Prix. It's quite exciting, you know, having a battle at the front of the grid between Leclerc and Verstappen. Bit of a change in the order, new teams sort of finding their way up to the front and so on, and you know, the teams that have struggled over the last few years having a good result, and all well and good, and you know, hopefully it will continue throughout the season. But yeah, I am going to end the video here. So thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video at any point, or the stream at any point, please consider leaving a like on there for me. If you're new around here and you like what you see, why not get subscribed so that you can be notified of future videos and streams like this one. Comment below any thoughts and suggestions you may have if you're watching this on a replay, and you have anything that, if you have any predictions of your own. If there's anything that you'd like to contribute or anything you'd like to see going forward, let me know. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So thanks once again. Take care of yourselves, stay safe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.